Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. Excuse me. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about what I believe are the five worst zodiac signs. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Now, this first sign I want to talk about, number 5 on the list, fifth worst. I'm going to go with Leo. And don't get me wrong, Leo can be very magnanimous, very generous. They have a lot of charisma. They have a lot of good attributes. They often are very good. They have a lot of fortitude, a lot of courage. But the thing about and creative ability, but Leo, um, I put them as one of the five worst at number 5, actually, fifth worst. Because Leo can be overly ostentatious, flamboyant. They often want people to revolve around them, and it's really their personality can be very strong, but could also be very domineering as well. They can make very good parents, but the thing is, sometimes they're a little bit too controlling, a little bit too authoritative and domineering. They're also the attention-seeking thing is what gets me too with them. It's the fact that if they're not loved and if they're not getting most or all the attention, they gotta maybe do something in order to get it, whether it's it might be interrupting somebody or what have you, or doing or trying to get that person that's receiving the attention away, or from the crowd or what have you. They'll do whatever it takes in some instances, so they can get most or all the attention in situations. I mean, they can get it automatically because they're so charismatic and magnetic. But that is why I have them at number. As far as Leo at number 5 now. The next I want to talk about, number 4, I have Capricorn, because Capricorn has good attributes, just like we all have, all zodiac signs. They can be very ambitious, career-oriented. They often can work very hard, very laboriously to attain career goals, have much discipline and restraint. The thing about Capricorn, what gets me, is the fact that they are overly they could be overly cold and callous, and they can come across as undemonstrative. I mean, they often remember people when a lot of others will forget. They have certain loyalty in them, but a Capricorn, it's just something about their coldness and their over rigidity. They will, with them, it's like that. Their career ambitions often strongly take precedence over anything else. In life, and it's at a point. I mean, there's nothing wrong with pursuing your ambitions, but the thing about it is Capricorn, okay, they're very good at taking care of their own interests, but their own interests often take precedence over others. And they're also very hard to trust people. And they can be ultra suspicious. I think them and Scorpio are likely the two most suspicious signs of the zodiac. And sometimes Capricorn, in a very negative manifestation, will vilify others in order to get themselves at a higher place, somehow do things to put their competition down, whether they deserve it or not, in order to bolster to push their spot, so to speak, a little bit higher in the career ranks, or for them to get to position themselves higher in their career by putting competitors down, and that is how Capricorn sadly will operate in negative, very negative manifestation. But I have them at number 4 as the fourth worst zodiac sign. Now the third worst zodiac sign, I'm going to go with Aries. Now Aries, again, like all signs, can have very positive characteristics and attributes. They can have much fortitude, much courage. They can be downright fearless. They will often stand up for others when other people will not. They're the ones that go put out the fire. They might get into a confrontation on others' behalf. They could be very good at occupations that require unbridled courage and fortitude. I mean, it could be like firefighting, or even working in repossessing vehicles, because that often involves confrontations, or working as a policeman in law enforcement, because They simply don't have, most have very little or no fear. But Aries, to me, I mean, is the most hot-headed of the signs. They have volatile tempers. I would say a lot of violent crimes are committed by Aries, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant people. Their temperament is exceptionally fiery. They are sometimes Aries, I think, will just argue. Their nature can be very combative and disputatious. Sometimes Aries will argue just for the sake of arguing, whether you need to have an argument or not, or whether the situation or the subject matter requires the argument because of their disputatious nature. They often can be very pushy, and maybe the ones more often than the others zodiac signs, and average to cut in front of people on lines. And that's why, I mean, when I look at Aries, I mean, I understand they could be hot tempered, they could forgive and forget, though they're generally not vindictive or revengeful people, but they just can get angry so quickly, and sometimes will be outspoken just for the sake of being outspoken, just to make a statement that doesn't necessarily need to be made. And in most cases, they're just simply direct, but a lot of cases it's just being overly outspoken, and when it's not even when that energy is not always needed. Now, the next sign I want to talk about, the second worst zodiac sign. Sadly, I'm going to put Pisces in there. Pisces, I mean, they could be the most well-meaning people. They have good attributes like all the signs do. They could be very adaptable. They are adept at handling adverse circumstances. They're very altruistic, very compassionate, and will often be about self-sacrifice. But the fact that what Pisces is, they can be very nondescript. They might not even have much of a classification. But what bothers me about Pisces is sometimes the overly passive and indolent side of them. It's also the most susceptible to drugs and alcohol, being ruled by Neptune. They often will change. They can be very chameleon-like, will often change in very company with others, that often take on the characteristics of those around them, and even if it's to your detriment. I mean, it's like if you bring Pisces in a bad crowd, they could be very susceptible to extraneous surroundings. And Pisces, sadly, is connected with betrayal. They're the ones most likely, sadly, to turn on a person, I believe, as well. But they have a lot of good qualities. Again, they can be very passive, but they're very malleable, and they wind up blending in with others, and sometimes it can be to your detriment. I mean, Pisces is very impressionable and susceptible to the company they keep, so to speak. So it's really that's why I have Pisces at number 2, and they can often be very confused, and they often lack direction in terms of where they're going. Remember, symbolically, it's two fish swimming in opposite directions. So anyway, well, last but not least, I'm going to put Scorpio at number 1. Sadly, Scorpio people, I hope you don't get too incensed or too angry at me, but Scorpio, I think, is the most manipulative of the zodiac signs. That often play a lot of games. They could be like super mischievous, and they are I mean, Scorpio, don't get me wrong, they have their good qualities like all the zodiac signs have, not to be overly redundant, but they do. I mean, they're often very, have an indomitable spirit. They can be very resilient. They have a strong ability to bounce back from adversity, and very strong-willed. They have very good, they're very resourceful, perhaps the most of all the zodiac signs. Scorpios can have very good sex appeal as well, and they have the ability to empower others and transform others' lives. But Scorpio, the transformation on the negative end and negative manifestation, they often can manipulate others, and transformation can be connected with manipulation, but they also can be very vindictive and vengeful. They really, if you make a Scorpio mad, sometimes they will hold a grudge against you more so than the other zodiac signs indefinitely. And the thing about them is that they sometimes, Scorpios, even if you haven't done anything to some Scorpios, there's such just a surreptitious, sneaky energy that it can be connected with them. And Scorpio, sadly, again, going back to the vengeful and vindictive part of this sign, they also can be the most jealous of the zodiac signs. I mean, you might not be doing anything to them maliciously, but they might take they might feel animosity toward you. You may not realize it, but they are the ones that often, I mean, will become jealous of you, might establish a hatred toward you just because they don't like the way you're doing something, or there's something about you that they think you have is better than what they have. So, and those are, and also too, I mean, Scorpios would be, of all the zodiac signs, I think would be most connected with stalkers because they have very obsessive and fixated energy, and it's kind of like, I mean, they're the ones of all the zodiac signs that might have the most difficulty in somebody rejecting them or ending a connection because they want to be able to, because they feel like they're losing their control and their power if something like that happens, and as a result they could be the ones that will often become the stalkers and become overly obsessed or fixated with you even if you're feeling apathetic toward them. So those are the reasons. I mean, they can be known for maniacal jealousy. This is a sign that can also has the potential to be the most dangerous because it's so hard to see. You know, if you make a Scorpio an adversary, it can be very hard to detect what they're going to do. Too, because they are so surreptitious and stealth-like, and they are very cunning and very shrewd, and I mean, which could be good in some situations if they're like if you're like a police officer or some investigator, what have you. But if you're like if you're somebody that if they turn into an enemy, they could be very dangerous. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for what I believe are the 5 worst zodiac signs. And until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.